No slides. Oh, I love it. That's right. You're doing the iPad. Love it. Well, come on up. Everyone on your feet for Jeff Cichocki. Big round of applause. Here we go. It's go time, Jeff. Do you feel the love?
How you doing?
Do you feel the Dealmaker love?
All right.
All right.
Good, sir.
All right.
All right. First of all, can everybody hear me okay? I think we got rid of the ringing in my mic, so I think we're good. For those of you that have seen me speak before, you should know I hate PowerPoint.
Yeah.
I love to draw instead, live. And the reason that I've learned to adapt my style to doing that, which is why I have my iPad up here, although we're not going to be doodling for the first session, the reason that I do that is because then I can take questions live while I'm talking, and you guys can interrupt me, okay? The event itself is not about what Jeff and Jim and I and Chuck are going to teach you guys. It's about what you guys are going to learn, which is different, right? So my purpose for this first session is really to just lay some fundamentals and some foundational stuff. The reason that we need to do that is, number one, not everybody in the room is at the same level. Some are new, some are borrowers, they've never lent before. Some of you guys are new as lenders, you've never lent before, to people in here who I admire as lenders, and I'm wondering why I'm on stage and not them, right? It's a great big range of people in the room, and we got to level that playing field. Number two, Jeff Watson is second. How many of you guys have ever seen Jeff speak before? Most everybody, right? How many of you guys know that your brain juices need to be flowing to keep up with him, right? So my job is essentially to help prep with the warm-up, just like we're going to go work out. We got to do some yoga, some stretches, get the brain functioning, get the juices going, and get everybody moving, because session 2, we're jumping straight into some heavy stuff with Jeff, okay? So fundamentally, I'm going to keep my iPad turned on for me, though, because, whoops, Face ID can't see me from that far away, apparently. All right. So first question for you guys. Oh, and again, I want to repeat this. Feel free to interrupt me at any time during any presentation while I'm up here. This is really, really important for you guys to know that if you don't ask questions, you're going to leave without answers. And that's really important, because I guarantee you that no matter how much the four of us have to say, we're going to miss something that you want to know. We're just not going to be able to cover it, because in order for us to put this on, we have to make assumptions. Now, we asked some questions, and over the years that we've been doing this, we get a lot of the same questions, and of course, that's the kind of stuff we're trying to focus on. But some of you are going to have some pretty unique perspectives on things. I personally love it when you guys hit me with really weird stuff. Like, I love it when my brain has to go into overdrive and go, ooh, that's a new one. What would I do, right? And then we come up and answer and create something on the fly. It's not always perfect. I'm going to tell you guys that in advance. It's not always perfect. But if we can get at least 80% of the solutions correct right out of the gate as we figure this stuff out together, then when you go back home and you work with your attorneys, you guys are in a really great spot. Because there's nothing worse than walking into an incompetent attorney's office, and I specify incompetent because Jeff taught me that we're supposed to look for competent attorneys. So when you walk into that incompetent attorney's office and you don't even know what the right questions are to ask, you guys are starting off on the wrong foot, and you're essentially just saying, here's my credit card, hit it for everything it's got. Right? Isn't that what it feels like? Because the hourly rate it keeps jacking up, right? So that's why it's important for you guys to do that and get the fundamentals down pat and understand questions are critical. Now, there's a mic in the back of the room that I grabbed for Sharon to sing with. Because we're recording things, ideally, we would really appreciate it if you guys would kind of head to the mic to ask questions, because then everybody in the room can hear, and those people who are online that are attending virtually, they can hear your questions too. The guys that are all online can obviously hear us, but they can't hear you without the microphone next to you, okay? So that's part of the fun, just getting the framework down. So my first question to you guys is, what is private lending? Like, who is a private lender? And I ask that question seriously because for those of you that have been around for a little while, what are all the national hard money lenders now claiming to be? Private lenders. Why are they claiming to be private lenders? Anybody got an idea?
It sounds friendlier.
It does sound a lot friendlier. It's not regulations, although it can play into it. Perception, I just heard. Why is perception important? Because they screwed it up. Like, think about it. Any of you guys that have been around the block, the new guys in here you probably don't know, but those of us that have been lending for a while, the national hard money guys are brutal, right? They're absolutely brutal and heartless. It is just a numbers game for them. It is all about volume and numbers. It is all about the spreadsheet. And when you run your business based strictly on a spreadsheet, which I'm hoping that you guys walk away from here at the end of these 3 days knowing that's not the right way to do this. Don't get me wrong, spreadsheets are important. They help us figure out our numbers, do our calculations, help us analyze the deal and things, but there's more to lending than just the spreadsheet. It's more than just a bunch of formulas on a piece, on your screen. So, how many of you guys in here want to have a bad reputation? Strangely enough, not one single hand went up. I don't know why that is. How many borrowers do we have in the room? Any? Ooh, sweet, more than I thought. Of those of you that just raised your hands as borrowers, how many of you guys are here to learn how to be better borrowers because you're not lenders? Sweet. Almost all of you guys did it twice. That's amazing. How many of you guys have ever thought about attending an event like this as borrowers to learn how to get your deals funded? Anybody? Most of you? As borrowers, how many of you guys figured out this is a room full of lenders? Came for that reason, right? This is the exact perfect place. Now, the very first time I ever came to a Dealmaker event with Jim, I fell in love within the first hour. Okay? First hour. Why did I fall in love with it? Anybody want to take a guess? It's not his It's not his legs, that's Bill Cook's legs that I fell in love with, but not Jim's. It's the people. It's absolutely the people. When I walked into the first Dealmaker event, do you guys know what I heard? Because generally speaking, just so most of you understand this, because those of you that know me will disagree with what I'm about to say, I am an introvert. I'm actually an extreme introvert. For years, I've been saying, I like people, just not very much. Right? That's an introvert's point of view. Now, I've learned after running AREA for 10 years and, getting opportunities to present my company and business and the things that we do, I've had to learn to transition from introvert to extrovert. So most of you just know me in my extroverted mode. What you don't know is it burns me out. And when I go home at night, I'm exhausted. I also bring that up because as private lenders, if we want to grow our business, what's one of the most important things that we have to do? We have to build relationships, right? And that's why Jim alluded to the 5 Ps. My P plus P plus P equals P plus P formula for lending. This, to me, is the absolute simplest, most fundamental thing that we as lenders have to take into consideration every single time we do a loan. What do you guys think the P's stand for? And those of you that have heard it before, you're excluded from commenting. What do we think the P's stand for? People, perfect. Okay, what do you think the second P is? What are we all lending on? Property. And when we make a loan, what do we fill out? Paperwork, right? So if we have the right people, we have the right property, and we have the right paperwork, what do you think we get in return? We get our principal plus what you guys just said, profit, right? Because principal is our money back. How many of you guys want your money back? Anybody here not want their money back? Keep it working. So the 5 Ps, let's kind of break those down a little bit as we lay fundamental and foundational things, because this really comes into play big time when Jeff does his presentation next. How important is it to do good business with good people? Excuse my language, but does anybody in here want to do shitty business with shitty people? And, right? Now, most of us that have been doing business for a while, unfortunately, have experienced it, right? Now, I invented the formula by accident. I was actually at another Dealmaker event when I invented this formula. And I happened to have been randomly called up on stage as part of a group, and I was standing there with Jeff Watson, and COVID had just we were just kind of coming out of it, and Jeff made a joke about the PPP program, right? That the government was offering for all of us as entrepreneurs that we could have qualified for. And I made a joke instantly, well, shoot, I've been in the PPP business long before COVID, because that's what lending is. It's those 3 core fundamentals. Did you guys know that there are a lot of really, really good people in this world? I know that when we see all the negative stuff on TV, it makes us believe that, everybody's evil and sadistic and just not fun people. But the reality is that the vast majority of people are good people, right? Most people care enough to not want to hurt someone else. Most people care enough that if they see you in distress, they'll ask you what's wrong, can I help? Most people. And even people who don't open their mouth because they're a little nervous, because of what society has made us afraid of, they still want to help, they're just afraid. But the vast majority of people fall into the good category. Now, not to go religious on everybody, but I'm going to pick on church for a second. Anybody ever gone to church and met some really, really good people that are clueless in business, that you would never want to lend your money to? Those are really good people. And that's why I pick on church, because it's a really obvious spot where you would expect to meet good people. But just because they're good people doesn't mean it's good to do business with them, and that's why the first P is so critical to me. Now, if you sit down and you start talking to some of the national hard money lender guys, okay, they will all tell you that they're asset-based and that people, or the asset itself, is their number one criteria. That's all they care about. That is a lie. There isn't a single lender out there, I don't care if you're a baby to a 50-year pro, it doesn't make a difference. Every single person who's lending money takes the person into account. Anybody ever applied for a loan with a national hard money guy? Anybody ever done one with a local guy who pulled your credit? Okay. Private lenders typically don't do that. But hard money lenders very often will pull your credit. Does that mean they care about you as a person? At least parts of you, right? Because they're trying to figure out, are you responsible? Right? Generally, that's what they want to know. Are you responsible? Are you the kind of person that's going to make your payments and follow through on the promises that you made? Which means you're going to pay them back. If you've got a really, really, really low credit score, how far do you think you guys make it in the lending space? You don't. Go to the bank. Try it. They're even more brutal when it comes to credit scores. Matter of fact, they care so much about you that if you don't have a W-2, they put up additional roadblocks, right? It's not that you can't get loans when you're a entrepreneur. You absolutely can get loans. It's just you need to go to a different department that they don't generally tell you exists. And unless you hang out in the real estate community, you generally never think to go there, which is just called switching over to the commercial department, because now the commercial department cares less about that stuff. It doesn't mean they don't care at all, but they care a lot less. The rules change. Property. Why is property important? Anybody want to take a guess? It's one simple reason. That's it. Because you might own it. That's it. If you guys find the very, very best deal that has ever been known to mankind, that's your borrower. He has a deal that is the best deal ever known to mankind, and he brings you that deal, or she brings you that deal. What if they're not a good person to do business with? How good is that property? Did you guys know that crappy borrowers will screw up the world's best deal? Did you know that really crappy borrowers can take the world's best deal and make it into a nightmare where you won't get your money back? I bring that up because there's an order to the P's. That's why people is first. The property is not first. If you guys want to do private lending, this is a relationship business. It always has been. Real estate in general is a relational business. If you're going to buy a house from someone and you're sitting at their kitchen table and you're kind of a jerk, how likely is it that the seller is going to sell you anything? Not. Right? Good people always want to do business with good people. So first, we have to do good business with good people. Second, then we check out the property. And we make sure that the property is one we would like to own. Okay? Now we're going to get a little bit more into the fundamentals of what it really takes to make it a good deal or a good property later. We're going to do a workshop all around that. But just know that you have to figure it out second. I don't even analyze deals for people if I don't like the person I'm doing business with. Now, anybody in here consider themselves to be discriminatory? 3, 4, 5, 6, a handful of you, okay? I put my hand up. When it comes to being a lender, I am absolutely discriminatory. Now, I am not talking about race, religion, all the stuff that's protected. That stuff we should protect. They shouldn't even have to have that stuff as laws for us. That's just common decency, is most of that. But did you know that if somebody walks in and they got a pair of shoes on that I don't like, I can say no. That's discrimination, because I singled them out because I don't like their shoes. I don't like the shirt they're wearing. Maybe politically I lean one way and their shirt leans the other. I could deny them a loan because fundamentally I look at it and go, I don't think we're on the same page. That you can do. This is all part of the process. So the third P, paperwork. Why do you guys think paperwork is important? And why do you think it's number 3? Because if it's not a good person and it's not a good property, there's no need for paperwork, right? So you put paperwork last in the list. Do you need good paperwork? Do you need bulletproof paperwork? Is there such a thing as bulletproof paperwork? It's questionable. And the unfortunate reality is that bulletproof paperwork just means it's rock solid. It's tight, right? We've thought of just about every single scenario out there that somebody could do, and we've created a structure for our loan that protects us from stupidity, right? Because that's usually what burns us. It's usually something stupid. There's no such thing as bulletproof. We can get close, but there's no such thing as perfect paperwork, because people are really, really creative. Like, in this community, do we not actually teach you guys how to think creatively to do deals? Okay, I consider myself to be a pretty darn creative person. I'm an ex-IT guy. I used to work for a company, 850 employees, 4 IT guys. Imagine the burden of trying to keep up with that. One of my jobs was to make sure that the 850 people who all had access to computers couldn't do deviant things with company assets. I was paid a lot of money to think of things that you guys might do. And you know what? I still miss things. Because people are people and they're creative. And that's why we have paperwork. And the job with paperwork, first and foremost, find a competent attorney to do it with you. In order to create good, solid paperwork, we have to have a set of money rules, and that's what the workshop's going to revolve around, money rules. It's a different way of looking at things. Usually we call it underwriting. I'm going to call it money rules, and I'll explain why when we get there. Although I'm pretty sure most of you could probably guess. So if we do the first 3 right, what do you get? Number 1, you get your money back, right? Number 2, when we look at the money that you get back, even if it's a bad deal and things start to go squirrely, our first priority is to get the money back, right? And so that's why we want the paperwork to ensure number 4. Because in the ideal world, when everything works, we always get our money back. And the bad thing is that lots of us, myself included, get complacent sometimes when we make decisions about the people we're going to do business with and the properties we're willing to fund because someone else made it easy. Because they did it well, they repeated it, and guess what? When we get lazy, you know what usually happens? So do they. Because part of our job as private lenders is to keep honest people honest. It's part of the paperwork process. It's part of our screening process of the people on the front end. It's part of our screening process when we look at the paperwork. Because if we don't do that, principal's tough to get back. Now, I don't want any of you guys to have some of the experiences that I've had over the years. I've done dumb things. I thought they were really, really smart at the time. But I didn't have some of the infrastructure in place that I have today that controls the decision-making processes. So as an example, which again, this is all about getting your money back, when something goes wrong, we need to have processes and procedures that we follow like clockwork, essentially a checklist. A deal goes bad, or is going bad, or is questionable, or we're concerned about it, or whatever. It's just not going as planned. What do? You have to figure that stuff out, because if you don't, again, no principle. I know I'm harping on that a little bit. But in the end, what is the most important thing in every single deal we do? It's not the first 3. It's actually number 4. It's the number 1 thing that we have to focus on. If we don't take the time to focus on getting our money back, what do you think happens? You will lose some. Here's the bad news about not doing your homework properly. And for those of you that have seen me speak before, I'm generally a pretty raw guy, just in case you guys haven't already kind of figured that out. I like to just have conversations about this stuff, and I like to speak from a very just raw, transparent perspective. So what do you think happens? Anybody got guesses? I know it's early, but I do have to get you guys to... You go out of business. How many bad deals does it take to lose a lot of money? One. Just one. Now think about that for a second. Let's just use $100,000 because it's a nice, easy number to do math with. Let's stay with 10% interest because, again, simple math, right? If you take $100,000 and you lend it to somebody for 1 year at 10% interest, how much money do you make? $10,000. How many years do you have to lend your money to get back another 100 grand? Not including compounding, because I just want to keep the math simple. 10 years. Okay, so for 10 years, you have to bust your butt. That means until you get to year 10 and you've made the 100 grand in profit, if you have a deal go so bad, like let me give you an extreme example. Someone buys a house, they have a fire, and you find out they have the wrong kind of insurance because you didn't do your due diligence up front properly. And that insurance policy does not pay. Do you think that your borrower likely has 100 grand sitting there? Probably not. Why? Because if they did, they probably wouldn't have came to you to borrow it, right? It's not always true, because sometimes it is just about leverage and how fast we can do things, and so it makes sense to borrow and leverage up. But even if they're in that case where they actually have $100,000 worth of assets, net worth and stuff, how hard is it to get it? Because if they're smart, they've got it in multiple deals, and it's not just sitting in their bank account. So what do you think the odds are collecting on that? It's tough. One bad deal, there's no principal. It sucks. When I was still a baby lender, I did a really, really bad deal. When I did it, I thought it was an amazing deal. How many of you guys have ever lent money on a project that you thought you were going to lose money on? Anybody? Anybody ever bought a house, spent the time to go figure out the scope of work, what it was going to take to renovate it, get it up to par, to rent it, flip it, whatever you're going to do with it, and you went home to your significant other and you said, man, I got the most amazing deal and I can't wait to lose money on it. Anybody? I'm making these kinds of references because as lenders, I just told you what every single borrower is thinking. Borrowers, I just told you what every single lender is worried about. There isn't a borrower alive that went out and got a house under contract because they wouldn't have put it under contract if they thought they were going to lose money. And yet, sometimes we do. So as lenders, focusing on that principle, are you guys kind of getting the gist? I mean, I'm kind of beating the dead horse, but there's nothing more important than principle. And if we get past that, then and only then do we actually get the profit. It needs to be successful. Now, I'm saying that stuff because it's a little bit scary to deal with. That's the raw part of me. The good news is the vast majority of the time, these things don't happen. You know, they just don't. Now, I do know lenders out there that their entire business model is all about watching deals fail. They specifically cherry pick high equity deals that are super toxic because they're waiting for the borrower to fail. I've got a lender like that that's actually down in the Milwaukee area, which is about 2 hours south of me. They live for that stuff. Most of the people who borrow from them have no concept and no clue. But as someone who's been in the industry, I understand the math, and I understand how to calculate what is an acceptable foreclosure rate. What can the portfolio sustain and remain profitable and healthy? Did you know that you can have as much as a 30% foreclosure rate and still make money in this business? Anybody guess it was going to be that high? Mathematically, it's possible. Depends on the kinds of deals you do. Depends on the kind of market that you're focused on. But you can pull a 30% foreclosure rate and actually make more money than someone who runs a 1% foreclosure rate. Foreclosure is not necessarily a bad thing. I personally think it's immoral and unethical to build your business to do that to people. But Foreclosure in and of itself is not necessarily a bad thing. You can make additional profits. Now, I point all that out because you have to plan for it even when you're doing good deals. You should plan to do a deal so that if everything works, you make money. And if it fails, you make money. That should be the plan every single time. And if you guys are successful at doing it 99% of the time, because no one in here is going to be perfect, you are going to run into something that will go a little sideways. That's okay. Early on, I figured out how to become a master at solving those problems. Anybody in here want to guess what that did for my business? Anybody in here want to guess how much we grew when COVID came? What do you guys think a good, aggressive growth rate on your business would be in 1 year? 10%, 20% growth? 30? 50% growth? Anybody got higher than 50? 70? 100? 200? 250? That's what I hit. 250%. 60 days, not a year. Why? The formula. The formula is the reason that we were able to take so much of a growth rate. Now, I'm also going to tell you, that is the worst damn decision I ever made, was to do what I did that got us that much growth. Why? Because I broke every damn system we had in the company. I buried my staff. Do you know what the trick was to actually do it? I went back to number one. I went back to the very first fundamental rule and just said, I just want to do good business with good people. And I recognize that not all good people are good to do business with. And so we applied that filter, and we strategically went out and started talking to our best borrowers when COVID hit. And we said, do you know anybody else that's struggling in this economy who needs a lender who acts more like a consultant and is here for you as a resource when anything goes wrong in your deal? Because we actually tell our borrowers up front, listen, I know under normal circumstances if something goes wrong, the lender's the last person you want to call. Like, they're just the last. Because you think that as soon as you give us bad news, we're foreclosing. And I tell people, listen, I want to be your first call. I want to be your first call. Why? Because as a lender, I'm really your financial partner in the deal. I'm not just a lender. I want to act like your partner. Now, I'm not officially your partner. I'm not asking for 50% profits and splits, but I want to be that person. As you guys are learning what we're going to be talking about for the next 3 days, this is the kind of stuff that I want you guys to think about. This is the kind of stuff that, as you're learning things, I want you to be able to look at your businesses and your business practices and your business model and apply these kind of fundamentals to it. Because as we go into things and we start talking about underwriting, right? And we start talking about the money rules, and we talk about raising capital, and we talk about servicing the loans after you've closed on them and you're running your business with them. And we're talking about some foreclosure things that happen and how can you actually figure out the best path of what you should do with a loan that's going sideways. All of those things boil back down to what we're talking about right now, which is fundamentals. How do I align all of these basic concepts to day-to-day fundamental focus of the business? Because if you do, your sales staff, as you grow, or yourself, if you want to stay smaller, it's really easy to sell money, right? It's kind of like, I was at a networking event one time, and you know when you go to networking events, it's like you're supposed to come up with this elevator pitch, right? Because that's what they tell you. Like, you got to be able to tell somebody what you do in 30 seconds. I came up with a way to do it in like 2. I rent people money. That's what I do. I rent people money. And I thought it was really funny when I came up with it the first time. And because that's really what we're doing. Now, if you guys go rent a car, how long is the contract? How many of your kids did you just sign away? Right? Think about that. When you guys go to the bank, or go to the car dealership, heck, skip the bank for a second. If you guys go to a car dealership and you want to buy a new car, and I will tell you, I haven't personally gone to a bank for any kind of major loan in like 20 years now. I've always done business with private people, with the exception of cars. Because historically, or at least for quite a long time, the interest rates on cars have been so cheap, paying cash for these things doesn't make sense. Because I can go lend the money out and make a killing in comparison to what the interest on the car does. So the car is the only exception I've made to bank financing in like 20 years. And I bring that up because when you guys go and finance a car, if any of you guys have, how long is that first piece of paper they print? That thing is like 72 miles long. I mean, when you go to Costco, your receipt's not that long. You know what I mean? It's kind of crazy. When you go to the banks, how many layers of paperwork do you guys have to sign just to get a loan? Now, here's the bad news. If you guys really want to do well at this business, guess how much paperwork you guys need? As much or more than they do. Why? Because if we want to be really good at what we're doing, we need to be hyper-focused on what we're doing, right? Now, as it just turns out, lending is like super amazing for my personality to do, okay? For those of you that haven't seen me talk before, and I've talked about different issues, I am on the spectrum. I am autistic. I don't tell people that because I'm looking for sympathy or anything. I tell people about that set of traits that I have because all of us have traits. The thing that I've learned about being on the spectrum is, did you know that every single thing that someone on the spectrum has, every single normal person has as well? The difference is, I just have more of them. More odd ticks and quirks and different things that make me tick than other people. I'm hyper analytical, I'm hyper strategic, I'm hyper focused, I'm OCD. I didn't even realize how OCD I was until I was actually at a mastermind for hard money lending. And I'm sitting at the table, and everything is perfectly square. And the woman who was sitting next to me, there's the gentleman up there, and he's talking about the struggles that he's having with his lending business. And he's, like most people in here, he's just doing it himself. Him and a younger guy that helps him. And so it's just the two of them, and he's talking about the struggle of, how much money he made when he was in business, and then he sold the business, and he has all this cash, and he's like, I don't even know how to get it all on the street and do the underwriting and do it safely and do this much business. And this is what I didn't know about my OCD, because the woman next to me also raises private capital. And she's got about 110, 120 million out on the street. And she says, you should just give your money to Jeff because everything that you just described, you want somebody who's OCD. Just look at his desk. And I went, okay. We all have those little tells. That's what makes us unique. Most people think of stuff like that as like handicaps and whatever. And I say that because every single one of us also has quirks about ourselves, self-doubt. As we go through this next 3 days, not that this is like a self-help counseling session for 3 days on what you need to do to overcome things, but I do want to bring it up because every one of us has a quirk, every one of us has a tick, every one of us has something about us that someone else looks at and thinks, that's just weird. It's just the reality. In the autistic world, I have several other friends who are on the spectrum. Do you want to know what every single one of us thinks about every other one of them? I'm not as bad as they are. It's the truth. First time somebody said it to me, I went, "Are you serious? I am nowhere near as bad as you," right? I didn't say it out loud because I'm respectful that way, but boy, the brain, she gets going. And again, I say that stuff because as you guys sit and look at the fundamentals of your business and your game plan and what you're trying to do and where you're trying to get to, just realize all these things that we're worried about, find a way to incorporate it into your business model and leverage it as a superpower. My son is autistic. Do you know what I raised him to think? He's got quirks way worse than mine. Everything about him is a superpower. Everything about him is a superpower. I was teaching him that all of his weird traits, these little quirks and tics, were superpowers in him long before I even knew I was on the spectrum. Because I'm just the kind of person that's what I believe. I believe that if you ask, you will receive. Do you get every single thing you ever ask for? Of course not. But if you don't tell anybody, like Jim's going to point this out later, because I've seen his slide deck, if you don't ask, you don't get. And when you do, guess what happens? When Jim tells you the story about what he did to me at Dealmaker, just understand, I set a massive goal. I didn't think I could do it in 12 months. I didn't think so. Guess how long it took? Start thinking in days. It took less than 7 days. Do you know why? Because someone had the courage to say something out loud. And the sad thing is, it wasn't me. Jim said it. Jim told the world what my vision was. And the truth is, by the end of the 2.5 days at Dealmaker, I had to up my goal. How many of you guys want to do that? Okay, so how many of you guys are telling everybody what you do? I don't care if you're borrowers or lenders. It doesn't make a difference. Are you telling people what you're doing? Do you tell everybody? I'm going to admit, I still don't. I tell a lot of people, and I'm a lot less afraid to do it now than I am before. The unfortunate reality is generally speaking, I don't like self-promotion. Like, I don't like to say things to brag or whatever. I love to share the things I've done, and I love to share the experiences I've had. I love to share the knowledge I've gained. I love to do all that stuff. And sometimes it's a fine line between sharing all that stuff and bragging, because sometimes you get excited about the things that you're sharing with people. And I know that I get excited about certain things, and so I actually try not to talk about them because I don't want to come across as braggadocious. I pointed out why. Because as part of your fundamentals of your business, if you guys want it to grow and succeed, and even if you want to stay small, lenders need borrowers, borrowers need lenders. We got to tell people. We got to talk to them about it. We got to get past ourselves. I'm still struggling with it. Y'all are going to struggle with it too for a while. Some of you will figure out how to get past it completely. Some of you will only figure out how to get past it sometimes. It doesn't matter. Whatever level you can get past it, even if it's just for a moment, that's a milestone. That's a fundamental that we have to focus on. How many of you guys have spent any time figuring out what a business plan will look like for your business? Growth, how you're going to do it, where you're going to do it, who you're going to do it with, why you're going to do it. Why is big. If you got the wrong why, guess what doesn't happen? You don't accomplish it. If money is your number one goal, guess what you probably won't hit? It's going to be tough, because if money is number one, then that means people aren't number one, and the relationship isn't number one, And you might do well for a bit, but eventually that catches up with you, and then everybody figures out that you really don't care. And then all you want is their money. And then it starts to go downhill, right? So what do you think the mindset has to be for you guys? Guesses? A really good one. Do you know why we have to talk about this stuff? I know you guys are quiet. That's okay. I can see the wheels spinning, so I'm not worried about you guys interacting as much. I can see all the giggles and the laughs and the smiles and the smirks and the fact that you guys are thinking about stuff as I'm spitting it out. When we get to Jeff's talk next, everything that's sitting here in the fundamentals, please keep in mind as we go through the next step. Because there's a balance to everything. Now, generally speaking, I use the word balance a fair amount, mostly because it's the common word that everybody gets used to. But I'm going to throw out a different way. Like mentally, I think about it differently, though. Like, I actually hate balance. Anybody in here thinking, man, I can't wait till I figure out my work-life balance? Okay, so let me put this in context for you. When we talk about balance, what is the symbol of balance? A scale, right? Scale. Looks like a teeter-totter, right? Goes like this. Okay, so what's happening on one side? Everything that goes up on this side makes everything on this side go down. So if you put life and business on your scale, that means that if you want a better life, your business has to suck. And if you want a better business, guess what happens to your personal life? It's going to suck. If we do this right, it's really a game of harmony. Because harmony is when you figure out, how do I set goals, say for my personal life, that are going to improve my personal life while simultaneously making my business life better? And the things that I want to improve in my business, how does that make my life better? That's harmony. Works more like a ladder. You climb, and you go up one rung at a time, and you get there. So if you guys are going to spend any time with some of the information that you learn over the next 3 days, which I would highly encourage you guys to do when you get back, if you have not done this, or even if you have, redo it. Go back, revisit your strategic plan for your business. Go back, review the whys. Go back, review the hows. Go back, review the money rules. Go back, review your underwriting. Go back, review, and sit down and figure out, of all the things that you think you're going to do, how do they impact everything else? I'm one of those people whose brain doesn't know how to slow down. I mean, it does slow down. It's just most people still think it's going insane. I usually describe it as, my brain runs at about 1,000,000 miles an hour all the time, which it kind of does. And I have a hard time sitting still and not absorbing something knowledge-wise. Like my brain just has to learn at all times. It needs something intellectual stimulating at all times. My wife and I went to Aruba probably 2 years ago, I think now, sitting on the beach. It's the most beach time I've ever had, mind you. I'm not a beach person. Sitting on the beach. What do you think was on my lap? What else do you think was on my lap? My phone, yep. Got my laptop, got my phone. What else? iPad. What else? Got a book, right? No, I don't drink alcohol. So I had a drink, but it's water. That's all I drink. Right, so I have all these things. And my wife says to me, when are you going to relax? And I said, I am relaxed. This is the most relaxed I've been in forever. And she's like, this does not look like relaxed at all. Look at all this stuff you brought to the beach. And I said, yeah, but I'm doing it at a slower pace. I'm being a lot more casual about it, right? Now, it's kind of funny, but again, that also is part of, hey, if you guys are going to review your business and figure stuff out, how do you take time to slow these things down? Because when you slow them down, that's when you guys can actually start doing self-reflection and analysis and go, what's working, what's not working? And more importantly, how do you know? How do you know it's working? How do you know it's not working? What are you going to do if it's not working? What will you do if it is working? Anybody here just want to do more of that? Because you know what? That's actually the most common answer. It's like, oh, something's working. Oh, I got to do more of that. Do you know what the crazy thing is? Most people don't. They don't look at what's working. They usually get bored with it. And then we try to find a better way to do it, and we clean it up, and we think we made it better, and all of a sudden growth stops. Anybody else ever done that? Outsmart yourself? All right, that's what it is. You guys excited about the fundamentals? Yes. All right? Are you guys excited about just having the right mindset for the next step in what's about to happen? Yes. Now, again, the goal was really just to get you guys thinking for this first part. Just to start thinking about a whole bunch of different things, right? Covered a lot of different elements to the basics and the fundamentals and the foundation of what it is that we're going to sit and do. I tried to give you guys, just get that brain going so that as new, more technical stuff happens, you guys are ready to embrace it and you're open to it because you're now thinking about how do I build this stuff. Now, just so you guys also know too, before I end my little soapbox or whatever you want to call my little intro this morning. Well, I'm trying to figure out, like, how do I say this to you guys? If you guys are serious about building up your businesses, okay, actually, let me give you a challenge instead, because I think this will do a better job of explaining what I'm trying to pull out of my head, which, by the way, sometimes is really hard for me to pull things out in a cohesive, coordinated manner. One of the things that I really want to give you guys for homework, and I actually want you to think about this for the next few days. This does not directly tie to lending in any way, shape, fashion, or form. Okay? But I want you guys to spend some time and seriously think about this. I want you guys to go onto Google, and I want you to just Google a weekly planner sheet. Okay? A 7-day planner sheet. It doesn't have to have any months, days, or years on it. I just want essentially 7 columns, one for every day of the week. Then I want you to hit print 4 times so that it is 4 weeks worth of planning. I want you to take those 4 sheets and I want you to just write on the top of each page week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4. And you guys can label the columns Sunday to Saturday. Okay? The actual dates, if you guys want to put, whatever your day number is, feel free to do that based on your start date. Okay? I highly encourage you to follow this plan starting on Sunday, ending on Saturday, because that's a normal traditional week. What I want you to do with the calendar, though, is I want you to do something different than I would be willing to bet that almost anybody in here has done. Instead of writing down on the calendar all of the things that you need to do this week, I want you to write down all the things that you want to do this week, not the things that you need to do. I want you to focus on, if money was no object, I had all of it that I need. Every day I wake up and there's a big fat pile of it in my mailbox, and it's more than enough to let me do anything in the world I want to do, right? Money is no object. You are officially retired from the need to do anything. Now I want to know, what do you want to do? Again, it's not me. You guys don't need to send this to me. Although it'd be really fun just to see what kind of crazy stuff you guys come up with. Plus, I might steal an idea and go, ooh, that sounds better than what I'm doing. But you don't have to send it to me. But I want you to write down in week 1, what does your ideal week look like? Spending time with the kids, your significant other, your grandkids, crafts and hobbies, church, volunteering here, like whatever it is, like it doesn't make a difference. The goal is, I want you just to write down, if you guys could live your absolute best life, what does your first week look like? Some things in life, we're not going to do every week. Some of them we're going to do every 2 weeks. Some every 3, some once a month. That's why we printed out 4 weeks. Because the object is to repeat the process for the next 4 weeks. Tell me what you guys want your life to look like. Then and only then, when you are done, then and only then do you get to actually fill in the gaps. Because there will be gaps. And that's okay. You're not going to, I don't expect you guys to sit down and figure this out and go, man, I'm going to get up in the morning and I'm going to exercise for an hour. I want to read a good book for an hour. I want to go for a walk. I want to go do this. I want to go, like, you're not going to spend 12, 16 hours every single day completely and totally booked with everything in life that you want to do. There's going to be gaps. There's supposed to be gaps. The gaps are their business. That's what the gaps are. The reason that I'm telling you guys to do this as your last core fundamental of just laying the foundation of how we're going to take what you guys are going to learn and implement is because I think you guys are going to find out that you don't have 40 hours a week to work on your business. You're going to find out that you maybe have 20. Maybe. Some of you will have a little more, some will have a little less. And it's okay. Why do you want to have a plan that requires you to work less? Anybody want to know? Effectiveness is one of the words. Focus is a great word. Efficiency. But focus is the number one thing. Did you know that if you guys have a financial goal for yourselves for the year, let's just call it $100 grand because it's always a nice, easy number to work with. If you want to make $100 grand this year, but you only have 20 hours a week to do it instead of 40, because this is how we're taught. This is why I'm giving you this extra. We're taught to put our nose to the grindstone and work hard. But if I took away all of your time and told you you had to make 100 grand in half the time, did you know that you'll figure it out? Did you know that your number one job for your brain is to protect you? That is the number one task for your brain every day, is to protect you. So it has to solve problems. That's how it protects you. Its job is to solve problems. I don't care if you're a creative, analytical, or whatever. It doesn't make a difference your personality type. Everybody can solve problems. So if you tell your brain, I have to do this. This is all I got left. I got 20 hours. And I can't even work 4 hours every day. Like on Monday, I only got 2 hours. You know, and on Tuesday, I only got 2 hours. But Wednesday, I got the whole day. I can put in 8 hours on Wednesday. And then Thursday, you know, I got 6 hours. And Fridays, I just don't want to work. Like, I just want to hang out with my wife all day, or my husband, or, you know, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever your situation is. What happens? This is why I want you guys to start thinking about this stuff now, even though you're not going to hit print most likely until you guys get back. But if you take all of these things that we're going to learn, you take all these fundamental things and you start applying them to your calendar, it will shift your life, it will change your business, you will make more money in less time, you will have more freedom, and everybody likes lending because it's so passive. That's the number one draw to lending, is it's passive. I do the work once and then I kind of just collect checks and then I get paid at the end, and you know, I don't do a lot of work for 6 months or a year or however long I did the loan for. There's not a lot of work in there. That's what everybody loves about it. And it is the most passive investment out there. I'm sure there's a few others, but it's extremely passive. So how will you guys perfect it? Some of you are going to find out, I don't have enough money to lend out to hit the goals I need financially. That's where financial friends come in. Anybody got any financial friends? Good people you want to do good business with? Some of them have money. Some of them you will partner and pool with. I'm not talking about setting up a big fund or any of that kind of crazy stuff, although we can talk about that too, but just collaborating together. Did you know that 2 people, 1 + 1, is not 2? 2 people is not 2. 2 people is more than 2. It's just like when you're looking for a really good accountant, right? You ask them what's 1 + 1 or 2 + 2. Try to find out what their answer is, and if they give you the mathematically correct answer, they're the wrong accountant for you or tax planner, right? The answer is, what do you want it to be? So it's the same with people and building out our plans. What is 1 + 1? Whatever you guys want it to be. But I promise you it's not 2. The 2 of you collaborating, your brain power becomes multiplied. Who in this room can you guys collaborate with? Who in this room do you guys want to get to know? Now, I don't know how many of you guys have looked at the schedule for the 3 days. If you've seen the schedule, you will notice that the breaks are much longer than a typical event. They're all like 30 minutes long instead of 10. Why do you think they're 30 minutes? Networking, getting to know each other, building relationships. All of the money that all of you need is all in this room to accomplish anything you want. Everything you need is in this room. So, networking. That's the last part of this whole thing. It's just my one last parting gift is do it. Don't be like me. I'm an introvert. I try to hide sometimes. Get to know everybody around here. You know, talk about the projects that you're working on, right? Some of you have talked to me about the hard money lending company that we're buying, and some of you have learned about it. If I didn't share it with people, nobody would know about it. If you guys have projects that you're working on, share it with people. Give them the opportunity to partner up with you. There's more than enough money out there. There's no need to be greedy. So you guys need to take advantage of the networking opportunities. Talk about the stuff that I just talked about. Get ideas from other people. Take notes. Everybody in here got a smartphone? Everybody? Anybody in here using the old flip phones like my dad yet? Right? But every one of those phones has a voice recorder in it. When you're having networking conversations, if you have a hard time taking notes and remembering things, turn it on. The microphones are wicked sensitive. You all know that. If you're talking to somebody on the phone and they turn the faucet on, how loud is that, right? That tells you how sensitive the microphones are. So turn them on, record some of the conversations, replay them later. Helps you remember names, helps you remember the details. It helps you create and establish that relationship and maintain it. I do it all the time. I don't tell people that I'm doing it because it's not something I'm trying to share with anybody. It's just for me. But I record lots and lots and lots of things with my phone. Some of it I never go back to. Lots of it I do, though. Now, I also like to listen to things at, 2x, so it's chipmunk, which my wife loves when I have Audible as the last thing that was on my phone, and we get in the truck, and chipmunk comes on, and she can't understand a thing that's being said, but that's fun stuff, right? You'll learn to do all that. So that is my parting gift to you guys as far as the fundamentals and foundations go. Take the time to network. Share the ideas and concept we've talked about. Ask each other what you're doing. Ask each other about your businesses. And also take time to get to know each other personally and ask the traditional stuff that we should all do. If you do that, I promise you guys are going to walk away from these 3 days completely different and changed in what your focus and what your outcomes will be on this knowledge.